First thing on the agenda, we're going to introduce committee members present. I'm Councilmember Jason Dozier, Chair. I see to my left, Councilmember Matt Westmoreland, Councilmember Michael Julian Bond, and to my right, Councilmember Liliana Bakhtiari, and Councilmember Jason Winston. Our next item on the agenda is an adoption of the agenda. Can I get a motion to adopt? Got a motion by Councilmember Bond, a second by Councilmember Westmoreland. Please open the vote.
1 moment, Mr. Chair. The vote is open. The vote is closed.
All right, the motion is adopted. 5 yeas, 0 nays, and 0 abstentions. Next item on the agenda is public comment.
Mr. Chair, we have to approve the minutes.
Oh, thank you so much, Ms. Lindo. Next item on the agenda is to approve the minutes. I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve. Can I get a second? Second by Councilmember Bond. Oh, I didn't hear you. I'm so sorry. We have a motion. Councilmember Bond seconded. Can we please open the vote? Minutes. I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve. Can I get a second?
The vote is open, Mr. Chair. The vote is closed.
All right, the motion to approve the minutes has been adopted. 5 yeas, 0 nays, and 0 abstentions. All right, next item is public comment. Let me see. It looks like we have no speakers today. 1 moment. All right, so it's on the big screen. We'll go off of that. The first speaker that we have today is Henry Jordan. Please come up to the microphone. And did I pronounce your name correctly? I apologize if I mispronounced. Thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Jordan.
Giving unto the Spirit of Christ, let him know that he which converted the sinner from the error of his way shall save a soul from death and shall hide a multitude of sin. James 5th chapter 28th verse. Death is the physical death by which good God sometimes punishes his disobedient people. James Montgomery, to fight to obey Jesus' word, you ask for life and not death. Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. Psalms 1st chapter 1st verse. The happy man avoids evil influences, deeds, and attitudes. He delights in God's word. Therefore, God causes him to prosper. And the Lord said unto Joshua, fear not, neither be thou dismayed. Take all the people of war with thee, and arise and go up to Ai. See, I have given unto thy hand the king of Ai, and his people, and his city, and his land. Joshua 8 chapter 1st verse. Go up and possess it is the characteristic phrase relating to the Hebrew entry into the promised land. Would you seek to live holy for this kind of victory? That the God of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of glory, may give unto you the spirit of wisdom and revelation in the knowledge of him. Ephesians 1st chapter 17 verse. The spirit of wisdom and revelation in the knowledge of him means a disposition consisting of wisdom and revelation in knowing him. Jesus is the real power that we want to live in us to conquer the works of the devil in us, around us, and in others. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Do we have another speaker for today? It looks like we do not. All right. Moving on to the next item on the agenda. So next up is actually presentations, but I'm actually going to make a quick change. We do have an individual who will be speaking with us today for a potential appointment. With that being said, Ms. Susana Chavez, if you are here, actually before you speak, Ms. Linda, do we need to read off that caption?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
All right, please, do I need to read that or?
Yeah. 22C 5037. This is a communication from Mayor Andre Dickens appointing Ms. Susana Chavez to serve as a member of the Little Five Points Community Improvement District. This appointment is for a term of 4 years.
All right, thank you, Ms. Leno. Ms. Chavez, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to join us today. If you could tell the committee a little bit about yourself and why you are interested in this appointment.
Okay, and can I remove my mask? I am vaccinated and boosted just to make it easier to talk.
But by all means.
Okay, great, thank you. Well, first of all, I just want to say it's good to see everyone. I haven't been in City Hall for 2 years, so it's great to be back, so glad to see that. And good to see people I've known for a long time and people that I haven't met yet. So welcome. So I've been living in Atlanta since 1980. I'm in business. We are in the real estate business. We own a lot of parking assets and a growing amount of industrial warehouse and retail. I live in Little Five Points. I've got properties in Little Five Points, and actually I live in Inman Park, and I have properties in Little Five Points which abut each other. And so I'm actually looking forward to this appointment. Someone recommended me, Lauren Welsh, who's executive director, and I met, a number of years ago, and she asked me if I'd be interested, and I said I would. I've participated in their studies they've done on the district, so I feel like I'm, a good fit for this appointment.
We have a motion to approve by Councilmember Westmoreland. We have a second by Councilmember Bond. Any discussion? Seeing none, please open the vote.
The vote is open, Mr. Chair. The vote is closed.
The motion passes, 5 yeas, 0 nays, 0 abstentions. Ms. Chavez, thank you so much and good luck, and thank you for stepping up to serve the city of Atlanta.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right. All right, the next item on the agenda, we're going back to presentations. The first presenter, Mr. Norman. All right. The floor is yours, Mr. Norman.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Glad to be here. Thanks for the opportunity to present and give an update on the Metro Atlanta Land Bank. Welcome to everyone that is new to council and new to the committee, and good to see others that I have been before in the past. So this is just going to give you an overview of the land bank, where we are today, and some things that are kind of on the radar. I'll go through some of these slides fairly quickly. Some are here really for takeaway illustrative purposes. This is just kind of a general overview of what we're going to cover. So one thing, just to give some grounding to what is a land bank for all of you that are new and may not be familiar with the land bank. So land bank is this quasi-governmental entity set up to basically deal with distressed, abandoned, vacant properties that are residential, commercial, industrial throughout the city of Atlanta, and return those to a productive use in which we consider being either occupied with a resident or business or green space or something of that nature, and is actually a tax-producing entity unless it's held in the public trust, which then is just general public use. Our core competency is the acquisition and disposition of the said property. Although we are statutorily allowed to do development, we really haven't done that in the past. But we also, so we typically stage the property, clear it, and get it ready for its next stage of life. We do not have eminent domain authority, so just that resides with you folks here on council. And typically we also are stepping in where the market is not providing the relief that we need. And so our mission reflects that same type of a statement. One thing I do want to point out that one of the interesting, I guess, special statutory authorities of a land bank throughout the state of Georgia is it has the ability to extinguish past-due tax liens, and that comes into play when you're actually rebooting property that may have been sitting for a long period of time that has accrued taxes. So policy, what have we been working on? So one thing we passed back in June of last year, the board approved our side lot pricing policy, which we did not have before. So this really pertains to properties that are abutting. Let's say you're an owner-occupant and there's a piece of property that we own that abuts that property. It may make more sense to try to do a deal with a property owner that's adjacent. So we basically activated this pricing policy here. And this is also typically with vacant land. So this is land that does not have any type of a structure on it. And so we have gone through several iterations of what it would mean for pricing relative to this type of property. So first, if you're the owner-occupant and you just really want to consolidate this property that's basically not active and expand your lot, we will do that. You see here, the whole point is getting this back onto the tax roll, so we'll do that 10% of the appraised value plus transactional cost to basically do that. But you can't subdivide it or partition it. It's really for your own use. If you want to do affordable housing, you can acquire that for 30% of the appraised value plus transactional cost, and that's to develop affordable housing. Now, if you are a corporate entity that happens to own that piece of property, we go through these different iterations. So it's 40% for that. If you're not for profit, 30% of the appraised value. And if you just generally want to do market housing and we have found no suitable affordable housing developers, then you can acquire that at 100% just as a market clearing transaction like anybody else on the street. And so the whole point of this is really figure out a way to activate these side lots that may be more better used by the adjacent owner. In order to have compliance, so if you decide that you do not want to do what we have agreed to, then we will basically seek to recoup that savings that we passed on to you. So via deeds, security deeds, covenants, and things of that nature, where you would have to repay that 70% discount or the 60% discount, that would have to be made whole before the title is cleared on that property. And so we do want to make sure that everybody understands that we are giving these substantial advantageous discounts for a reason, and if you don't comply, then we will try to recoup that on behalf of everybody else. And feel free if there are any questions along the way, just happy to pause. So wanted to go, and I'm talking through, make sure I'm advancing the slides as I talk. So the strategic plan. So a few years ago, we actually came up with a 5-year strategic plan that we passed in April of 2020. So really right after the onset of the pandemic. Your Crescendo helped us activate this plan. You'll see this is kind of the front page of what the plan looks like. It's on our website. And so there's really set in motion several things. So the name is still legally Fulton County City of Atlanta Land Bank Authority, Inc. It's quite a mouthful. So we actually have modified it as a DBA of Metro Atlanta Land Bank. We did the logo. We've changed how we look and feel, activated our new website, activated things as a social media interface. So we now have Facebook, Instagram, and a website that you can find a lot of this information on also. And then we started laying out more particular goals of the agency for the next 5 years. And so we felt it was prudent to do an update to this. So towards the end of last year, we actually held a board and staff retreat in which you see the pictures here from the retreat, actually at the new Pittsburgh Yards, which has been redeveloped. So this is actually in there, one of the facilities there. And so that's been updated. And so we'll be publishing that shortly to everyone. And that will be posted to our website, and we'll make sure to circulate that to members of council. One thing also on the transactional side, I just want to remind folks that, it's a Unity Place, great activity, great project that was just unveiled back in February of 2022. This is something that, of course, the mayor was there and cut the ribbon. This is a unique project. But we were also involved in this project from a long period of time ago. So we actually received this property back in 2009, 2010. And so I wanted to show you, these are actually the original properties that sat there. And so we actually maintained these properties for about 9 years. And so we actually had to deal with a lot of issues dealing with this piece of property, making sure that it actually stood intact, and then ultimately ended up in the nice facility that you see there. And our participation is is noted by being on the Unity Place wall. So you'll see our logo is actually part of this patchwork of logos here, just to memorialize the fact that we were involved there. So we do get involved, and for the audience and for council, so we get involved in projects that may take a longer period of time to actually come to fruition. And so this is a 10-year exercise before we actually got down to this pathway. So the land bank does play a role sometimes in these long-term projects that may take a little bit of time. So we do see ourselves as patient landowners of property. And so one thing we also wanted to do, coming to our strategic plan, is we want to have a better interfaces with our constituents, stakeholders, et cetera. So we have Lunch and Learn series. We started beginning of last year. Towards the end of last year, we actually did a series of spotlights with partners, critical partners. So you see here, we did one with Joshua Humphreys, who is the Director of Housing and Community Development, Office of Housing. That was one. We followed that one up with the Executive Director of the Atlanta Land Trust, Amanda Ryan. And so we have a partnership with her group in the land bank. And then we also followed with another spotlight on the Atlanta Police Foundation. And so one thing about all of these webinars, great information, we think, for our stakeholders and constituents. And we also record these, and so they're posted on our website. So anyone who's interested in learning more about these partnerships or what's going on with the land bank or the projects, you just go here to this URL and click on that, or go to our website, metroatlantalandbank.org, and you'll go under resources and webinars and find that. So operationally speaking, a couple things have happened since our last report out to CDHS, I think was June of last year. So we've hired a couple of people. We hired a vacant property manager, Ms. Kimberly White. She started in September 2021. We've also now hired our first internal general counsel, which we have not had in the history of the land bank. And so Attorney Elizabeth Roberts came over from the county, and she is actually internal general counsel for the Land Bank Authority. And just for reference, the land bank in Atlanta is actually the fourth oldest land bank in the United States, and there are over 200. So we were actually one of the first land banks created in the United States. And so a lot of folks kind of look to us to see what we're doing here. So we want to make sure we continue to have enough depth of scale. So one thing, I want to point out, this is our organizational structure here. You'll see all the blue boxes are actually the FTEs for the organization. So we have virtual scale with our agency. So we use a lot of the green boxes are contractors and consultants and external vendors. You see the two orange boxes, those are legal counsel provided by one from the city and one from the county attorneys. And then of course in the top, the board of directors, which are political appointees from the county and from the city, provide governance of the land bank. Just want to give you a sense of the scale. We also just moved, so we're now in Peachtree Center, down at the Peachtree Center Nexus. This is our new lobby sign of the Metro Atlanta Land Bank, and we moved in September of 2021, able to accomplish that during the pandemic, and actually able to take advantage of some of the vacancy rates. And so we're now locked in a nice 5-year lease there. And then rounding the bend here, property management, we manage over 100 pieces of property. And so one thing we have to do is we have to maintain our property. And so we need to be as compliant as any other property owner in the city. So we want to make sure our properties are mowed and the trash is picked up, the windows are covered, and they're maintained until they can turn into things like Unity Place. And so we actually did an RFQ back in the end of last year. Your typical formal process, thanks to the city for using their procurement website. We use our website. We had other publications, had a robust process there. And so we ended up engaging these 5 vendors here. These are new property management vendors. So we use professional services outside of the organization to maintain our property assets. And we also have one that we brought on board to do demolitions, which we do periodically. Not very frequently, but we do periodically have to deal with demolition. And then lastly, we're part of an organization, the Georgia Association of Land Bank Authorities, Inc., which we call GALBA. I'm the president of that. This is the association of all the land banks in the state of Georgia. There are 23 right now. This organization was started back in 2011 when we passed a new state law regarding land banks. We basically revamped the land bank statute, and we led that effort. And so one thing we have done, the ARPA funds that are basically out being managed by the state, there's several $1 billion at the state level that's been dispersed. We, as a coalition of land banks, we submitted an application to the state of Georgia on behalf of all the land banks, requesting $8 million to be allocated to the land banks. Minimally, roughly about $250,000 per land bank, and then the balance of the funds will be used for projects that would come up. So that's still pending. There are no announcements that have been made just yet. I know everybody's anxious, not just us, but other folks, to hear how that's going to work out. Since we were a loose affiliation of land banks, we engaged the Georgia Mountain Regional Commission, which is one of the regional commissions throughout the state, to serve as a fiscal agent and grant manager. So if we are successful in receiving these funds, they will manage that and do all the report out back to the state and everything else, so that the land banks can go on with their business of doing that. And this is kind of an excerpt from the application. We have the full application if anybody's interested in taking a look at that. And so all these are kind of things that are basically kind of giving you a general sense of the broad depth of things that we're involved in. We continue to, support the mission of affordable housing and revitalization throughout the city of Atlanta. And just as everyone knows, the land bank is constituted that any city in the county of Fulton can join the land bank. We have had other cities reach out to us with potential interest in joining, so we'll keep you updated on if we do actually look to expand. Of course, we have to come back to council with that. So at the end of the day, all of these type of efforts are really focused on us maintaining an emphasis on creating affordable market housing for the city, our citizens, eliminating blight where we can, neighborhood revitalization also. And then ultimately, we always say controlling the land is imperative. I think we all see that now, the state of the market, that anything we can do to control and put towards the type of community efforts we like, that's it. So that's just a general overview, update of the land bank. Hope that was informative, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that anyone might have.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Norman. Any questions from my colleagues from the committee? Councilmember Bond, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Norman, for another very thorough presentation. But I have a question, sure. And it really is, the subject of the land bank actually came up yesterday in public safety on a housing code issue where a gentleman had purchased a home from the land bank. Once you all extinguish the taxes and clear the title, so the properties are put up for sale for any person or any individual to come in and acquire?
No, there are actually different ways that properties are disposed of. There are periodically market clearing transactions, such that they may be sale of a property with no conditions after the sale, in which you basically at that point you are the new bona fide owner, and therefore you are subject to all the typical rules of anybody who owns property in the city. And we sometimes convey property for the purposes of a specific redevelopment purpose, so it may have a area meeting income requirement or anything of that nature. We typically manage those via deeds and covenants and things of that nature. But anything related to, there's a public safety issue, sounds like maybe a code issue or something of that nature, anything like that is on the new owner to comply. So we don't reach over to deal with that. We just basically manage all of our property. But no, so all the property is not just, so we're not a wholesaler. Mm-hmm. We're not a we're not an MLS based agency. There typically is an application. There's typically either a RFQ, but occasionally we do have surplus property sales. So we do move property for the sake of generating operational support for the agency, and those would be market clearing transactions, arm's length, like you or I buying a piece of property, and then at that point is your piece of property, and then you're subject to anything that comes along with that, buying a new piece of property. And of course, given our mission, the properties we are selling are not pristine pieces of property. We don't have the move-in ready parcels. All of our stuff is going to be vacant. You build something on it, it's going to be a distressed piece of property. There may be damage, there may be other things, but we're trying to repurpose that property. And then, of course, being a developer, owner, applicant, you would have to be ready for those types of things to transform that property into a ready property. So.
Okay, and my follow-up question is there anything that prevents the Housing Authority of Atlanta, the actual city of Atlanta, or a nonprofit created by the city of Atlanta from acquiring property from the Land Bank Authority for the purpose of redevelopment?
Not at all.
So if the city of Atlanta, let's say, were to create a home building nonprofit, that nonprofit could come to you and try to purchase or acquire as much property as you're willing to let go?
Absolutely. So one thing about the land bank and land banks in general, one of the elements of its creation is that we can deal with intergovernmental transfers basically between agencies. So just as the city can easily move property to the land bank can move property to any other agency. So we could move it to Housing Authority, Invest Atlanta, et cetera. Of course, if there's some compensation for cover holding costs or some other type of, those would be worked out in a deal. But that's one of the reasons why you have a land bank, because the statutory thing about a land bank is that our board is the fiduciary for making decisions to sell property. We actually have the legal authority to sell property. The board sets the sales price. So we're not governed by the municipal requirement of high price sealed bid, typically that you find at a municipal entity. The land bank actually has a latitude to basically set those prices to basically create the type of an outcome you want, right? So if you're doing affordable housing, probably more inexpensive it can be, the better for the ultimate project. So yes, we can deal with those types of things back and forth.
So just how much property do you estimate that you might be holding right now on average? How many parcels of land?
Well, it depends on, so we hold properties on behalf of other entities as well. So we bank the property for Invest Atlanta, for instance, that they have purchased, and we're holding, and we do the maintenance, and we do that, and we transfer it back to them. So those are not for sale. We also hold property for the Atlanta Land Trust in the same vein. We hold property for Atlanta Neighborhood Development, ANDP. We've held property for Habitat. We've held it for SUMEC. We've held it for all the nonprofits, Quest. So we've actually held property for other agencies for a period of time until they're ready to develop, and then we transfer it back. So we count those properties as available. As far as properties that are actually ready for in our own sole inventory, we have it's a small portfolio of probably no more than 30 properties that are ready to go out. So we actually hold a lot of property for other individuals as well.
So back in, I think, 2018, the city passed an ordinance to prioritize all of its available land, buildable land, for redevelopment for affordable housing. So to protect that property, we could convey that property to you, and you would hold it for us?
Yeah, you can manage it. You can convey that to the land bank. I mean, other cities have done that. One reason cities have done that is consolidation of inventory as well. Philadelphia did that. They had property in 7 agencies and moved it all to the land bank just to pull it together. And then also the ease of disposition. So we have an easier disposition process because by state law, we can actually create our process and procedures to dispose of property unless there's a requirement by the donating entity. So yes, property could be consolidated that way as well. But we were part of that whole study because we were part of the sub-cabinet under previous administration. So we worked with all the Department of City Planning, Housing Authority, Invest Atlanta, Beltline. We were all part of that review process, and so yes.
Okay. Well, I don't want to belabor, but I just have one other question.
Sure.
So, in theory, if you have property that's free and clear, ready to be put back on the market, there's nothing that prevents the city of Atlanta to acquire it again and build affordable housing on it?
Oh, not at all.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. I yield, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much, Mr. Norman.
Absolutely.
And I'd like to talk to you offline in a few days.
Okay.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Bond. Any other questions from the committee? Mr. Norman, I do have a couple questions, and apologies if it was in your presentation. I just missed it. I'm really appreciative of Mr. Bond asking the question about how many properties you currently hold. I'm curious what your process or any sort of challenges you've had with acquiring land, especially considering how we've seen land valuations increase dramatically in the last decade. If you can kind of talk through some of those challenges, and I'm curious, how much land do you typically acquire on a yearly basis, just so we can have a sense of maybe are these land values impacting your ability to acquire that land, and are there ways that the city can help in that work as well?
Sure, great question. So there are typically 5 ways that a land bank or our land bank can acquire property. So we can buy it outright like any person on the market. People can donate property to the land bank. You inherit it. You don't want it anymore for whatever reason. You can donate that property to us. We can participate in the tax foreclosure process, where properties go to the courthouse steps on the typically, non-judicial tax foreclosure, and bid on those types of property to come into the land bank. Right now, we're undergoing the demo lien foreclosure program. You may have heard, so the city is actually foreclosing on a pack of demo liens they have, and those properties are coming to the land bank after that process has concluded. And then lastly, from criminal activity, if property is seized by our law enforcement agencies, that could be the DA, solicitor, or even U.S. attorney, those properties can also be conveyed to the land bank. So we receive property primarily via market acquisition. That requires us to have capital to do that. So we did that more or less with the neighborhood stabilization money. We managed about $16 million of those funds, and we actually bought a lot of single-family, multifamily houses. That program is pretty much sunset, and so those properties have kind of come through and gone. So that was over probably about 60 or 70 properties that were acquired, and those are single-family and multifamilies. Donations back in 2010, 11, 12, there were several donations because the market crashed and people were moving property off of their balance sheets and gave it to the land bank. But a lot of those properties have been moved on. The criminal activity, we have received some property from the U.S. attorney. They had some criminal seizure, money laundering cases. They acquired property, conveyed those to the land bank. Some of those actually turned out to be very timely. Some of those properties were in Grove Park, for instance. And so we actually got those properties relatively inexpensive, where now you have properties going for $200,000, right, in the midst of 5 to 7 years. And then in terms of I mentioned the demo lien foreclosures, so those just be the cost of the foreclosure process, which are being done there. And the one outlier is the tax foreclosure process. You have to have the ability to go bid on the courthouse steps. So one of the challenges of the land bank here is the capitalization of the land bank to be competitive as an entity to do that. So we have not historically funded the land bank to be a capital acquisitive entity. And so we are not highly competitive in a free market setting. We were able to buy properties in 2010, 2011, because properties then you could actually acquire for $30,000. We actually did buy a property, for instance, in Pittsburgh for $35,000, which is now going for $150,000, right, and 10 years later. So yes, the more you wait, the more the market will creep up and you will be less competitive. One of the things of the DNA of our land bank in general is that it has a special relationship with the tax foreclosure system. And so it can meet property at that level of intersection. But that's something that we continue to try to work through with our tax commissioner in terms of trying to be more effective in that regard. If you do a review of land banks across the country, you'll see some have very large inventories because they are default recipients of tax foreclosure property that nobody bids on. So you'll see, Chicago has 25,000 parcels, for instance, in their inventory. Detroit has over 100,000 parcels in their inventory. Those are actually bad situations because those reflect some challenges in the market. But if you have that effective relationship of tax foreclosed property come to the land bank, that positions then the city or the county or any municipal entity to have those properties available to actually move toward where you want them to go versus relying on the market to completely solve that issue. So those are some issues. We have actually been seeking commercial debt facilities, credit facilities to support our operations. We're actually talking to some commercial banks right now to have a line of credit to allow us to do an acquisition facility to go buy property. We have some property opportunities in front of us now, multi-million-dollar acquisitions, but we're trying to raise the capital to do that. We've also looking into raising some type of private equity vehicles for the land bank to basically support it, because again, we primarily receive operational support from the city, and more or less, so the org chart that I showed you, the funding really goes to support that, and then we have to self-generate a lot of resources to acquire property. So that has been one of the challenges historically. And then also, just so you understand, so throughout the history of a land bank, even though we're the fourth oldest in the country, we really didn't start acquiring property as a land bank until 2009. So from 1994 to 2009, the land bank did not really acquire property. It cleared title. So it's really only been the last 13 years that we've been in the business of actually acquiring property. So.
Thank you. And I guess just to follow up on that, what is your land acquisition budget? What's that typically look like? And what is something that you could hope would be considered in the current market?
Well, we would hope it would be a multi-million-dollar acquisition budget. So there is no allocation from the city for acquisitions. So the acquisition, there's a zero acquisition line item from the city to the land bank as it stands today. So we're self-generating. So I'm speaking to creating external capacity. That's what we're trying to do.
Okay, and then I'm assuming your maintenance costs, your operating costs are going up because the more land you have or you hold on to, that it still has to be maintained.
Still have to maintain it. That is correct. And the cost of gas and the cost of crews and all that stuff continues to rise. And of course, you still have dumping issues with I'm sure your constituents about tires and things of that nature. People still are aggressively doing that, so we have to deal with those types of things as well. So
that was really all I had for you. Anybody else before we close out with Mr. Norman? All right. Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right. Next on the agenda, Ms. Eloisa Clemente with Invest Atlanta.
Good afternoon, council members. It's a pleasure to see you. I'm sure you're going to hear this for a moment, but it's nice to actually see you live and in living true color. I just wanted to take an opportunity to present some of the team members as well as we provide this update to CDHS. They are new individuals or hired during the pandemic, so you probably only have met them through Zoom. So with that, I want to take a moment to introduce Amy Lancaster. She is head of Workforce Atlanta, which will be presenting to you today. Do you mind if I just say it's hard to breathe? Okay, thanks. And speak at the same time. And then I also have behind her is Jennifer Fine, Tax Allocation Districts, which will also be part of today's presentation. She's been with us for a while, but I know some of you have not met her. And then behind her is Monica Hooks. She is our Executive Director for the Women's Entrepreneur Initiative, and she will also be presenting today, so give you an update. And then to my left, two new hires, and I'm really excited, that will be leading our Economic Development Department effort. And first is Martin Lamar. He is our Senior VP, and Noah Downer, who's doing also an amazing job as the Director. So really excited about what this means in terms of services that we can provide here to you into the city of Atlanta. And we'll jump right in. So when we talk about services in the city of Atlanta, I have to tell you, we are at a critical point for Invest Atlanta. I'm super, super excited. There are about 16,800 registered, licensed businesses in the city of Atlanta. Over the next 3 years, and some of the programs that I'm going to be presenting to you, we'll be able to touch, play a role, have contact with, direct, and provide some sort of service to what we are estimating, so the number may be higher, about 2,500. That means that Invest Atlanta, through you and the council support and this mayor's support, will be able to influence and play a role with over 15% of the city's businesses. In our history, if we had the honor to work with so many businesses in the city. So we're excited about what this means. We know this is a big responsibility, but we're looking forward to what this will do to help with our trajectory in ensuring that Atlanta continues to be the vibrant economy we want it to be. So let me just give a quick overview on the several of these programs that we're going to be growing here at the City of Atlanta. I put them in 3 buckets for you. The first bucket are those expansions, so those programs that already exist that we were able to get additional funding. How? Invest Atlanta applied through several different grants and opportunities, and we actually were awarded some. We were awarded $20 million from Wells Fargo, which will be our Open in Business, and we're very grateful to them and what this will mean in terms of impact. Some we received through the Centennial Yards project, and some directly from this council to help us with ARP dollars. And so those specific ones that we're going to be expanding are 2. Our small business lending program is going to be larger than we've ever had, and we're excited about what that means for our businesses. We're hearing loud and clear from businesses that what they need is financial support, and I'm proud to say that you've helped us get there and provide that to them. And the second is a facade improvement program. What are we doing if you think about key commercial corridors? What are you doing to make those facades look nicer so that they're just more amenable to customers, to help businesses grow and continue to employ individuals? And so we're excited what that will be, because that will be the first time in our history we'll have a facade improvement program throughout the entire city of Atlanta. Then our completely new programs, which are 4 as our small business hubs. This mayor has specifically asked us to what are we doing to meet people where they are, and so we're proud that we'll be able to announce here soon several new offices. So the idea is that you will have the Invest Atlanta at the main hub, but then you're going to have different spokes where we'll have Invest Atlanta staff in these facilities, and the idea is to make it easier for businesses to outreach our services. Then we're working on a local hire program, more to come, our PACE, which is our energy efficiency program, and then our commercial down payment assistance. Here, the idea is we've talked a lot about affordable housing and how we need to create affordable housing, but the reason Invest Atlanta focuses so much on small businesses because it's a way to create wealth, right? If you think about ways to create wealth, home ownership, but also business creation. So what we're doing is we're seeing the pressures on leasing rates for small businesses who want to begin their dreams. This component will be 2. We're looking at a down payment like residential for commercial, and then a permanent commercial, meaning that a nonprofit will take it down, meaning purchase the building, and then provide leasing space for businesses at an affordable rate in perpetuity, or like my legal counsel likes to tell me, a long term. I guess nothing is in perpetuity at this point. And then the last final program is we have new programs of which we're partnering with individuals to help us get this out. Again, the idea is how do we do this in an effective and efficient manner? And so those 3 programs will be our technical assistance program, which is open today. So if there is any business listening to us today, there's free technical assistance available to you thanks to the vote by this city council and this mayor to provide technical assistance to small businesses. So think about if you need help with marketing, with legal, with financial. There are entities that we have contracted with and will pay your bill so that you can get your services that you need to. The next is our small business grants, which I'll get to in just a second, and a permanent affordable commercial. And that gives you an overview. For today's conversation and update, the one I'm going to speak about and focus is on the American Rescue Plan program dollars, because this one is now open and it's going to be very active. It's our first one out. It's 2 ways to think of the ARP is the workforce development bucket side and the small business side. And this is an overview, and let me drill down on each of them. So the first is Resurgence 2, and I want to thank each of you for your help. Many of you sent out information about this grant opportunity in your newsletters, or you've called businesses, you've reached out to them for up to $40,000 in a grant open to small businesses, to nonprofits, and even individuals that work from their home, as long as you have a business license here in the city of Atlanta. Here the idea is how do we use these funds to help strengthen businesses, and they can use these funds for anything that helps them to really think about what they need to do in the future to prepare for COVID or the results of COVID, and to continue to be competitive and grow. When a business grows, they're hiring more individuals, is what we like to see here in our city. And so we're excited about what this will be. This is open today. You can go on our website. I'd like to report that we have received, the last time I checked, which was this morning, we have over 1,700 applications in process and over 200, almost 250 applications complete. That application cycle does not close until April, and so April 30th. So I'm telling that it's going to be very competitive, but we want businesses to come in and to apply. So excited about what that will mean in terms of impact. The second program is our technical assistance program. Again, here the idea is if you've met with businesses and you all have, the first thing you say is, oh, we need financing. And what we've found is sometimes, yes, they need financing, but they also need other services. So my father personally had his own auto body shop. He was the best guy you've ever had to fix the car, but don't ask him to do marketing and finance and legal. That was just not his cup of tea. So the idea was, how do we help that small business grow and penetrate, but also get them the support services around them? So really excited about how we merge these two together, or how we braid them, so that we can understand, help the business financially, but also with that technical assistance so they can be successful. That is available today, and we're excited that you can go on our website and sign up for the service that you're interested in and in the location you want. The next is what I talked briefly already about, this permanent commercial. So the idea is, how do we continue to think about providing opportunities? And I think specifically of, and I know you all will think of someone in your district, a mom and pop, been in business for 30 years, and you ask them, do you own your shop? And they've been leasing for 30 years. So how do we get more of those mom and pops to be able to afford to purchase their location and not only build wealth from their business, but build wealth from the increase in prices of the actual property? And so this is the purpose of that, and we're really excited what that means. And also for that new entrepreneur that has a dream to create some exciting new either shop or idea in our districts or here in the city, but needs some help in terms of rent, because leases is very expensive. So they'll be able to go to locations throughout our city where we'll have below market rate rents. And the last one, if we go to the next bucket, would be our workforce development. And this side, we spent a lot of time thinking about, how do we not only provide the job, but how do you ensure that Atlantans are prepared to get these jobs? And that is the goal. How do we do that? Because again, we're really looking to, at our core, it's about equity. It's about how do we ensure that all Atlantans can benefit from this growth. And so we've been spending a lot of time on workforce development. And here, we're looking at vulnerable populations. We try to put two and two together. Department of Public Works had a need. If you guys know what Operation Clean Sweep, how do we help cultivate and develop people to be able to take those jobs and then hopefully build a career here at the city? So this is when we're working with them to figure out how we can attract and hire individuals, fill a need that's needed in the city, and then get someone a career working with the city of Atlanta. And the last one there is on workforces. We're looking at regional. Before the pandemic, data showed that 70% of individuals wake up in one county and actually drove to another county to work. What that means is we have a workforce system where we're all moving in this shed, thinking about how do we be competitive. And so this is our effort to understand the regional ability for us to be competitive. It's not only important for us on the economic development front, but you talk to any business when they're thinking about where to locate or where to grow their business. The first thing, I'd say 90% of them will say the reason why they moved where they did is because access to good workforce that they could fill. And so we understand the importance of what that means, and we're trying to make ourselves more competitive. Again, make our city of Atlanta residents competitive to take these good jobs, paying above middle wage job. I just will close my section with letting you know that we are on track. This is just to give you a sense of timing. We set these goals. We've hit every single one. We are on track to get this money dispersed in a very effective and efficient manner so we can make the largest impact we can to the city of Atlanta. With that, I'm going to ask Jennifer Fine to come up and provide you with a briefing on the tax allocation district. Jennifer?
Great, thank you. Which one's for?
This one.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon, committee members. Again, I'm Jennifer Fine, Vice President of Planning and Strategic Initiatives at Invest Atlanta, and I'm going to be giving you the TAD programmatic report for 2021 and through February 2022. So as I like to do each quarter, I start off with the map identifying all 10 of the TADs specifically for new committee members or folks joining us on TV or elsewhere that might not be as familiar with the tax allocation district program. And also want to reiterate that Invest Atlanta is still committed to not funding any new projects in Atlantic Station or the Princeton Lakes TADs as directed by council. All proceeds or increment are pledged to outstanding debt obligations. So very proud of this slide, and just to point out a few reasons why. The range of the scale of those projects, big and small projects, as well as the range of uses and the location of the projects throughout the city of Atlanta is something we're very proud of. In 2021, 27 projects or programs in 8 tax allocation districts were awarded funding. Over $33 million in tax increment has been committed to leverage nearly $390 million in private investment and development throughout the city of Atlanta in our tax allocation districts. And these projects focus on affordable and workforce housing, which is clearly a priority for Invest Atlanta and the city of Atlanta. But in addition, we also fund projects that focus on creating and reactivating office, retail, and small business improvements within all of the TADs. Of particular interest in this slide is of the 1,305 housing units, 998 or 76% are or will be affordable when they're constructed. So again, something we're incredibly proud of, and we'll continue to push the needle as much as we can on that front. This slide serves kind of as a takeaway for committee members and anybody else interested in kind of seeing project detail. This identifies, it's a compilation of all of the projects and programs that were approved month by month during 2021. It provides the specific details that I highlighted in the previous slides, and I'll continue to provide this quarterly as a resource for this committee. This slide shows activity thus far in 2022, actually just through the end of February. We have a board meeting this month, so these numbers hopefully will change. But through the end of February of this year, 3 projects in 3 different TADs have been awarded funding. Over $3.5 million in TAD increment has been committed to leverage over $32 million in private development and investment. Again, these projects range from affordable and workforce residential development in the Campbellton TAD to rehab and improvement of a large commercial building in the West Side TAD, and a pre-development loan for a large residential mixed-use project in the East Side TAD downtown that we're very excited about, and we'll see that come hopefully back to us in phases for development. This one's a little bit of a smaller spreadsheet, but this again has all of the details on those 3 projects awarded funding in 2022. This is probably the more fun part of the TAD quarterly update. So there's visuals of projects that have been awarded funding within the last 2 quarters, some of which are under construction, some of which will take a bit more time to advance. But they again exemplify the variety and scale of projects receiving TAD funding assistance. So the top image is Brentwood Commons in the Campbellton Road TAD on Campbellton Road near Greenbrier Mall. This is an area where we're definitely seeing an uptick in activity, and we've been able to provide funding assistance to a few programs and projects in this area. This is a $30 million new construction project that will create 113 units of multifamily housing, of which 108 will be affordable with rents between 30 to 80% of area median income. So deep levels of affordability. And the estimated completion of this project is the end of 2023. The bottom image is new construction of a small infill residential and mixed-use project that we're really encouraged about. This is by a developer that we've provided funding assistance to before, who's been very successful in completing their projects in a very timely manner, gets them leased with local area tenants at deeply affordable rates. Oaks ATL is their local nonprofit developer. Their mission is to provide affordable housing and services to area residents. This project will create 6 units of affordable multifamily housing on the top floor with rents at no more than 60% of area median income. The ground floor will be 2 retail office spaces for community services, generally around food and beverage, laundry services, and the like, to support not only the residents in this building, but a couple other properties immediately adjacent to this that they have also rehabilitated. Image on the top shows rehab and improvement to a long vacant commercial building on Donald Lee Hollowell in the Perry Bolton TAD. Very excited about this project as it's the first recipient of Perry Bolton grant funds for a commercial property of any kind. We launched the Resurgence Fund program in the Perry Bolton TAD last year. This is the first recipient. They received $500,000 grant for this $2.5 million project, which will build out about 8,000 square feet of medical office space and about 2,500 of flex office. So not only is this the invigoration of funding and vitality to a long vacant building, but it also is going to provide a service, this medical office service that is non-existent along that part of the corridor and in the neighborhood. So work has begun and is expected to be complete and occupied by the end of the year. Bottom image is also a rehab of a long vacant commercial building. This property is at 201 Joseph E. Lowry in the West Side TAD. And when complete, this project will bring over 12,000 square feet of community-oriented commercial office space back to life, housing local businesses. This is my last slide, I believe. So the top image shows the geography of a project within and around the Grove Park neighborhood in the Perry Bolton TAD. And we're encouraged about this project because it's a partnership we have with the Grove Park Foundation, the local community development corporation, working at a very grassroots level with the neighborhood in Grove Park. They were awarded $1 million in Perry Bolton TAD funding to help acquire and construct affordable single-family for-sale homes, which on the TAD side is one of the more complicated and difficult areas to impact affordable housing. So we're always very proud and really passionate about trying to get that single family for sale affordable. So the funding will help finance the construction of 14 homes to be sold to income qualified home buyers at no more than 80% of area median income. So through a community land trust model. Completion is estimated to take 3 years. And then at the bottom is an image, even though it's small, that should be familiar to probably everybody here. The National Center for Civil and Human Rights is underway with a significant expansion and reconfiguration. It's about a $50 million project. They received West Side TAD support to really assist with the build out, to create more space for educational and cultural programming, to better position the center as really the global hub and resource for the advancement of civil and human rights issues today. So being right in the middle of downtown Atlanta, a really impactful benefit to the city as being the place, the source for information and education about civil and human rights. 24,000 square foot expansion is expected to be completed by the end of 2024. So we're again very excited, and as you can see, consistently funding and trying to advance projects through a wide range of funding types and scales.
Another 4 years to do a lot of work.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Monica Hooks.
Council members, the quality and experience of the returning council members, and a new mayor.
Thank you, Jennifer. To the distinguished council members, thank you for your time. I have a short and sweet presentation for you on the Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative, which we think is an innovative way of addressing both small business development and workforce development. As of December 31st, with 21 businesses reporting, we've totaled close to 600 jobs generated by the Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative. It's important to note that those jobs break down in terms of full-time jobs, contract workers, and interns.
When you think about business scalability, we average an annual revenue increase since beginning the program of $476,000 per business.
Quality and experience of the returning
The
council
average
members
dollar
and,
amount invested
new
in
mayor
each
who
startup
loved our
since
city
beginning the
very much, so
program
decided to
is roughly
work together in
$208,000. And we're really, really happy to report that total capital invested in the WE portfolio of businesses is over $4.3 million since the beginning of the program. With that, I will hand it over to my colleague, Amy Lancaster King.
Good afternoon, Chairman Dozier, members of the committee. Thank you for having me today. I'm Amy Lancaster King, Executive Director for WorkSource Atlanta. And I'm going to walk you through our quarterly, our quarterly report through the end of January. And our program year, just for context, runs July 1 through June 30th. So this slide here shows our enrollment and number of people served based on the three different categories of participants that we serve. Those categories are adults 18 and older that are unemployed or underemployed, dislocated workers, also 18 and older, that are recently laid off or separated from work due to no fault of their own, and then youth, both in-school youth, which are 14 to 21 and tied to or connected to some sort of formal education or training program. So that could be secondary, post-secondary, or some sort of occupational training program. And then out-of-school youths ages 16 to 24 that are not tied to any formal training or education program. This chart shows you the number of people served for all of those categories, as well as the number enrolled. And when we say enrolled, we mean enrolled in training programs. For all three types, we have either exceeded last year's numbers or on track to exceed last year's numbers by the end of this program year, which is June 30th. For dislocated workers, we've exceeded pre-pandemic numbers for both the number enrolled in training and the number served. And by the time we get through the end of this program year, again on June 30th, we should exceed pre-pandemic numbers for youth enrollment and or served, as well as the total number of services provided overall. Regarding performance, as in what are the outcomes once people complete training, right now we are doing a really good job. There's 12 indicators that we track. 9 out of 12 of those are exceeding our negotiated performance rates with the states, and the other 3 are just shy of meeting those goals. So we're in a really good position, especially relative to the rest of the local areas across the state. This next slide shows you the activity within our one-stop center. So our one-stop is home to our resource library and computer lab. This resource library is open to the general public. You do not have to be eligible for services in order to take advantage of our resource library. At this resource library, you can get assistance with resume writing, job search, career advising, those types of things. In addition to these basic services that we offer the general public, we also provide referrals to other much needed services. Obviously, the pandemic has made most of the services delivered in a virtual format. However, we are now back open 5 days a week, so we expect to see these numbers go up. The top line there talks about our orientations. We typically see a drop in orientations during the holiday months, but we're already seeing a sharp increase pick back up now that we've gotten through the holidays and Omicron. The next slide talks about, shows our business services update. I'm really excited in the work that we've done with Invest Atlanta. Several of these are direct referrals from Invest Atlanta. The board approved these OJTs and the incumbent worker training contracts at our board meeting last week. For the OJTs, the board decided that there's some main criteria that we need to follow. One, the minimum wage that we'll accept to subsidize an OJT is $16.76 per hour, which is the livable wage for a single adult in the MSA, according to the MIT Living Wage Calculator. The other piece is that we will not do any more than 2 OJTs at one time for one employer. The goal there is really to increase the number of businesses that we partner with in the city to create more access to jobs for our other participants overall. And then lastly is we will do this, if possible, and the employer qualifies for the 75% subsidy, we will do that, but we will only do it for 6 months, and then we can reevaluate depending on how well that OJT is going and if it warrants extending it another 6 months. The incumbent worker training piece is really used as a diversion to layoffs. So this training is with MyCart, a drug manufacturing facility here in the city of Atlanta. The training supported by WorkSource Atlanta will allow employees to increase their skills, make them more marketable overall, as well as make them eligible for possible promotion and obviously retain that job. And these are middle skill jobs, which is really important here in the city. Some other key highlights on the programmatic piece. We recently hired a community outreach coordinator, so you should see our mobile bus out and about in the community. If you have an event and you would like us there, please let us know so we can have Russell Hall there with the mobile bus and the career lab. We've also got Westside Works, an affiliate site, locked in to be open in April. We're talking with Goodwill for their new metropolitan site to have access there. And then we're also working with the local libraries in the city to create a schedule to be available in those areas as well. We've been participating in local events. Some of the ones that we have upcoming are the ATL Job Fair at the Atlanta Airport, which is next week. And then we're also doing more intentional outreach with the NPUs. So we're scheduled to be at the University 101 on April 20th to really talk about the types of services we provide and how we can better partner together. Again, increasing access and just all around the great work that we're able to help people with. On the administrative side, while not as glitzy and glamorous, there have been some major successes on the administrative side. We completed 2 RFPs, and now we are just going to be continuing the race to get them under contract and legislated before June 30th. We also had our state workforce audit, and that was just a couple of weeks ago. In the past, last year, we had 13 findings. This year, we only had 3, all minor programmatic findings and 0 disallowed costs. And my team here knows what a feat that was. We also cleared out all of the previous findings before this year's audit, which I think is about the first time in like 5 years. So not only did the team do a great job in this year's audit, but just getting us through all of the other things from the previous audit to close those out was a Herculean feat. We've also just wrapped up the programmatic side of the city audit for WorkSource and have no findings there. So again, lots of great progress on the administrative side. For our successes, we've got a graduation coming up on March 30th at 11 a.m. And while it may seem like a small number of individuals, these are 8 individuals that are getting their GED that have had to overcome homelessness, navigate childcare, abuse, these things that are really big issues to deal with, but they were able to make it through, and we'll be celebrating them on March 30th. Additionally, we placed our first participant in our OJT contract that started at Stanton & Worthy, a local law firm, and they started on March 1st, so really excited for that placement. And then we also continue to increase our efficiencies and have reduced our eligibility period, working very closely with our one-stop operator and our case management company to reduce the eligibility period from 72 to 45 days. And when you look at that compared to the other WorkSource boards in the region, we are near the top of that. So we are doing very, very well and really proud of the progress. We are implementing a human-centered design and making great strides in making sure that our services are deployed as effectively as possible. So, and that concludes my report.
That includes the Invest Atlanta report. Just want to thank you and open up to any questions for myself or my colleagues.
Thank you so much, Dr. Implementation, to the rest of the Invest Atlanta team. I just want to open it up to my colleagues first. If you have any questions for the Invest Atlanta team. Councilmember Westmoreland, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your presentation. I have a question in 3 or so parts. It's all budget related, and it's more than anything for the benefit of my new colleagues as we head into the first budget season. But can you, Dr. Clementich, talk briefly about the EOF grant bucket, what it is and how much money is in it right now? The Middle Wage Jobs Fund bucket, what it is and how much money you both think is there now or is likely to be there come July 1st. And then talk a little bit about how the Housing Opportunity Bond dispersal is going. You know, we did the drawdown piece for the first couple years so that it could work in the budget, and would appreciate an update on how much of that we've allocated so far and then what the thinking is around the next 12 months or so.
Okay, I'll start with the first one is the Economic EOF, or the Economic Opportunity Fund. That is a fund that was designated, created by this council several years ago, actually before my time, so about 15 maybe years ago. And what that does, it allows the city of Atlanta to be competitive against other cities when we are competing for companies, when they're looking at expansions or relocations. As of today, that fund has a $0 balance. There have been different thoughts throughout the history of that fund, whether give Invest Atlanta a certain budget amount and then we allocate and report back, or we bring each request to the city council. But as of today, there are $0 in that fund. I will say, just on a competitive piece, both the city of Atlanta competes very aggressively with Florida and Texas in particular for companies. And so they have a very deep pocket in their forms of EOF. So it does really allow us to be competitive if that is something that we so choose to attract these big headquarters. So just to give the public and just for the new members some history, we've used that fund for companies such as State Farm, well, not State Farm, we used it for Athena Health, NCR, Porsche headquarters. Those are all projects, and I have a complete list of all of them that we've used it. So again, directly your question, we have $0 in that fund. Hopefully we'll be back to you soon because market is picking up again quite aggressively. The second one is the Middle Wage Job Fund, and here the idea was, how do we switch it so that we really are looking, the goal is how do you get Atlantans employed in middle wage jobs? And so here the idea is the middle wage job rate as of today, I'm waiting for ARC's updates, about $18 an hour. So the idea, we want to get more Atlantans employed, but we use it as an incentive to the company. If you hire this many people with this salary and you hold them for a year, then you can get up to $2,000, depending on how many they hire, to as an incentive. And so I'm excited to report that there currently are 2 or 3 companies in the pipeline. If those 2 or 3 companies come through, we will pretty much take down, get Atlanta hires in great $18 to $19 to $20 an hour jobs. And so that is a good opportunity. The fact that I'm telling you that we're going to expend all that money is good, because that means we're hiring more people in the city of Atlanta. In terms of the Housing Opportunity Bond, I know on the second tranche, we are now in the throes of bringing some of the programs back. So owner-occupied rehab was one of those programs that during COVID, we put a hold, because at the time there were no vaccines. The individuals that were in the pipeline were, some of them in our high-risk groups, seniors, veterans, or individuals. So we put a hold on that program. That program is now coming back up, and so we have really started to implement that program. So you're going to see a lot more drawdown perhaps on that. We're going to have to finish the funds from the first HOB to then now implement the second. I know there's there's projects in the pipeline, so I can get you, though, Councilmember, exactly when we think more money will be drawn down and when we should be done. So I'll have to go back on the team on that one to get more specifics on that HOB.
Okay, please, and then send our way would be appreciated. And then one quick follow-up on the EOF. What, if anything, do companies have to do in exchange for the money we give them?
So when you apply when you come to us for the EOF, there's a couple things we do. First off is we're going to do a lot of analysis on these. So we take this very seriously. We want to ensure that there's a high rate of return. We look at it as an investment. If these were funds we were investing ourselves, we want to ensure that we're doing it in a responsible manner. So we look at the number of jobs. We look at the investment. How much are they investing? Are they renting? Are they building new? Where in the city are they going? We want to ensure if they're in parts of town where we haven't seen that much development. I'm thinking about south, maybe west, east parts of town. They'll get an increased offer. And the third piece, and thanks to the work with this council and under your leadership, we've added an E3, Economic Empowerment Inclusion document, in which the company commits to providing benefits back to the city, and we specifically track those benefits. Are you not only going to invest in Atlanta Public Schools, but are you going to focus on schools with reduced lunches? Are you going to help nonprofits that potentially focus on services for veterans or homeless individuals? So it really is driving us to drive this equity question. We believe that equity has to be at the forefront of what we do, but it's a shared responsibility. So companies need to also take into that commitment. And the third thing, we're going to ask questions about, are you committed to equity? What does your board look like? Do you have equity or diversity on your boards? And so really drilling down, I'll send a copy of the E3 to the council so you can see how aggressive it is. It's the first one I know of in the nation this aggressive. So we're excited because I think it's very clear. We'll welcome any great company to the city, I always to say, but if you're going to want one of our incentives, we're going to need you to also commit to the equity that we need here in the city of Atlanta.
No more questions, Mr. Chair. Just a comment for us and anybody watching. Like, as we move into the budget conversations in April and May and June, those three topics, making sure that we have a bucket to continue recruiting large companies, and that we refill the bucket once it gets drawn down for connecting residents to middle wage jobs, and that the way we structured the housing opportunity bond last year was essentially a partnership with a bank that as we drew down the money, we started to pay more debt service. And so that was a prudent thing to do at the time. Revenues are such now that we should be more aggressive in spending our opportunity bond dollars to fund the programs that Invest Atlanta, and I want to make sure that's part of our budget conversation this year. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Westmoreland. Up next is Ms. Bakhtiari.
Thank you. So I have a number of questions, and I apologize if these are very freshman-oriented questions. I'm still learning. So some of my first questions were, some of it was around the TAD funding. I was wondering how much of I saw the affordable housing numbers, and I was wondering how much of the affordable housing qualifies as workforce affordable.
Workforce affordable? Jennifer.
So how much of the numbers that I showed would be classified as workforce affordable?
Correct.
So in 2021, I think that's where I had the 1,305 number of units. So I don't have the exact breakdown, and I can certainly provide it to you, but I've pretty good sense of all those projects. So typically our projects are between 60 and 80% of area median income, and on the rental side, we consider 80% of area median income to be workforce housing, and then below that is affordable housing. So probably of that 1,305 unit number, probably about 50%, maybe 40% are at that 80% of AMI level. That's a lot of percentages I just threw out there. And then the rest are going to be, then the rest are going to be lower. But I can get you all of that information in one sheet, but at least 50% would be that.
Yes, if you wouldn't mind. I see that 998 of them are affordable, which for sale and rental, which is great given the numbers. But if you wouldn't mind sending me a more accurate breakdown, that would be
yeah, because there is a range. But if you want to focus on that workforce, yeah.
Thank you. And then That was my main question for you. I think a lot of my questions are going to, thank you, are going to fall under, not for Miss Lancaster. And I was looking at some of the forms, and I'm sorry, I'm pulling it up here. I'm not sure what page it would have been on. But the numbers for some of the WorkSource Atlanta performances, like, and this might be due to the pandemic, I'm sure, but I'm looking at the numbers from 2016 up until 2021, and there seems to be a stark drop in numbers in some of the categories: adults served, to some degree, adults enrolled, services provided. Just wondering what may have contributed to some of the drop.
So part of it, one, I'll clarify, I've been in the role since July, so this was before my time. However, I was on the board prior to that. So part of it was that we had services in-house and converted to having a contract manage those services. So there was some probably change due to that. The other piece is definitely some of the program year starting in 2019, that actually started July of 2019 through June 30 of 2020. So half of that year and all of the 2020 year are representative of the pandemic. So during that time, majority of that time, we were only available to offer services through virtual platforms. And so that will diminish. That's where we've been really pushing to be open back up to the public, because we know if only delivering services in a virtual platform is going to limit access to those that don't have access to Wi-Fi or phones or anything like that. Right. So prior to like the big drop, before the pandemic, I really can't speak too much to that.
I understand. People like to, I get asked questions 4 years ago for my district, so I understand but if there's any, are we seeing, I'm sorry, go ahead.
One other thing, thank you, Eloisa. We have seen a decrease in our budget pretty typically, almost 10% every year. So that has been standard for about the past 5 years, and we're expecting to see that again this next programmatic year.
Okay. And are we seeing, you were saying that we were, at least for the one-stop tracking report, you're saying that we're seeing an uptick in numbers now that y'all are open back to 5 days a week. Are we seeing the same?
And got through the holiday months. November, right. December, January are typically slower, but when you add Omicron onto that obviously took another hit down. So, because we did actually open back up to the public in November for several days of the week to make sure we were increasing access, and then we had to revert back right in January.
And I was, for some of the other pieces where it's talking about servicing vulnerable populations, I was wondering how you all define vulnerable.
So there's multiple definitions, and I can send you the full piece, but homelessness is obviously one of those. Low income is one of those. There's a big income threshold that we have to deal with, having background barriers. So if they've got any sort of record at all, that would be another vulnerable population. And then there's specific zip codes that are considered vulnerable regardless of the other items. But I can send you the full details on that if that would be helpful.
That would be very helpful, yes. And I was wondering how many people that y'all are currently assisting that fall into that category, and can you elaborate on the wraparound services that are being provided?
So right now, everybody that is enrolled in our programs meets some form of challenge. Either it's like in order to be qualified for training, you have to meet a self-sufficiency. So it's just because you're unemployed or underemployed, if your income is too high, you're not eligible for training. So if you're enrolled in training, that means you meet the self-sufficiency requirements and are eligible. So kind of captured in that vulnerable populations piece right there.
Okay. Because obviously the concern is it's great that there's job placement pieces, but obviously, as we found time and time again, as you mentioned, people are driving from outside of the city to do a lot of this work. So I was curious as if Wraparound Service is also included.
So yes, so there's two parts of it. One is our contractor that provides the bulk of our case management for our adult population and our dislocated worker population, also provides wraparound services. And that can be things like helping with equipment you need for training. Like if you're going to construction training and you need steel-toed boots, that can be covered. It can also be used for child care support or short-term housing support. And then we can do that for the populations that we serve directly as well. So we're just now, I will say we just now got it worked out so that we can offer those directly through the city. So we're making lots of progress on that. Otherwise, our contractor is able to handle that.
Wonderful. And I know that you had mentioned we were talking about job placement, advertising, the job fair, et cetera. I was wondering how the turnout had been for some of the job fairs.
So I'm not sure that I'm the best one to answer that because I'm not the one actively going. I know that several of the job fairs, one of the things we did back in October was the Praise in the Park, and that had a really good turnout, so we saw an uptick after that. We're starting to see more job fairs. There have been a lot that have been virtual, so that's been a little bit challenging to try to retain people and get them enrolled because there's just not that connectivity. So when we do have an opportunity to go to an in-person fair, we're there.
And so, to that point, I was wondering how the partnerships, and I apologize if this is a ridiculous, if this question doesn't make any sense. I was wondering how the partnerships were with the unions and some of their apprenticeship programs, and how the partnerships were between Invest and APS.
Okay. So for the unions, we have we have one union rep that is for the North Georgia area, and so they're brand new, so we'll be building out that relationship. We have Youth Build also on our board, and that's a union person that
They're
actually,
an amazing program.
yes, they are. And so we work very closely with them and have already been brainstorming about how we can increase enrollment and leverage the existing participants or past participants to help increase enrollment. And so to the enrollment piece overall, that's where this community outreach coordinator is so key to helping increase our visibility and our outreach within the community.
Because to speak to your point about equity, my concern always is the school to prison pipeline and how this can assist with job placement and higher paying jobs to secure staying in place.
You want me to answer your question about APS and Invest
Sure,
Atlanta?
please.
So the question was, what's the relationship between Invest Atlanta and APS? I'd say we have a very good relationship. We can always get it better, but I think it's a very good relationship. Not only does board member Olympiada sit on the Invest Atlanta board, so her voice is always heard on every single item, but in addition to that, I've been touching base probably at least once a month with the superintendent about different projects that we have going together or the new initiatives we would like to create. In particular, we're looking at a targeted down payment assistance program for new teachers in the city.
Wonderful. And two more questions, I promise, and then I'll wrap. I was curious as to how you all were advertising outside of the Mpu system, because obviously one of our big issues is low turnout. And the people who typically need the most help don't have the privilege of coming to the Mpu system.
So one thing, we're based on our grant, we can't call it advertising because that is not an allowable expense. It is targeted outreach. And so we have to be very, very mindful as to what our grant will allow us to do and not allow us to do. And that is one of the main challenges, right? So if anybody's looking for general funds, we would love general funds because then we could properly market. We are working with the other 4 worksource boards in the region on a project called ATL Works. And there is money that we were able to get approved because it is a regional initiative to help increase targeted outreach across the region. And what happens is individuals will get promoted to on different social channels, but they're all directed to this one website that will direct them to the proper local worksource area. Otherwise, everybody's going to Atlanta and we just serve the city. So for those that aren't familiar with how the lines are drawn, this is a great way. And so we have seen a lot of improvement in that regard, but that is an area that we need additional support and help.
And my last question. How is it that council could assist? I mean, obviously, we're coming upon budget season, so I'm sure that's explanatory in itself. Are there other ways in which council can assist with broadening the reach of these programs?
Definitely. We're part of the outreach coordinator component is to put together a regular newsletter that you all can share as well. It'll be directed towards past, present, and potential participants, but really showcasing what it is that we offer to help you direct more folks our way. And again, if you're having events and you want us there to be able to speak, that's what we're here for. So we're more than happy to partner with you in those ways.
Wonderful. Thank you for answering all my questions. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilmember Bakhtiari. Up next is Councilmember Winston.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Also, I want to say I'm glad I was able to entice my colleagues to go through the proper channels to raise their hand to speak. But I just had two quick questions. One for Dr. Clemente. Good to see you in person. One question I had for you was the Resurgence grant. You spoke about, an unprecedented amount of applications coming through from businesses. Can you talk a little bit more about, the qualifications and criteria for selecting businesses? It seems as though we may get to a point where we have an overwhelming amount of businesses that respond, and you just want to kind of talk through the transparency or the transparent process of selecting businesses who will win the grants.
Yeah. So what we do is, in terms of requirements, your first question is really the only real requirement is you have to be a City of Atlanta business to participate in the program. And to do that, you have to provide us with the license. So we're relying on that license that they have to take out and then upload that and then be registered with the Secretary of State. I will say that I like to tell people that these are funds that came from the Department of Treasury. So if you've ever worked with Treasury or the IRS, you understand how important it is to have all your paperwork in order. So you do have to apply, submit all the paperwork that we're requiring you to submit. A lot of it is just note, for those listening, I always like to say it's not Eloisa or Invest Atlanta that's asking you to turn in all that documentation. It's our wonderful colleagues at the feds that provided us the grant that really are requiring us to have this. So I am very respectful of that. So once you submit all that application, we actually at Invest Atlanta will get it all together. We're working with an outside group to help us ensure that if someone submits that they didn't miss a document or upload a wrong document. Once every application gets through the process and we've approved all the documentation is there, we have an external review committee. So we bring in individuals from the nonprofit, from business, from every walk of life that we can think of. And we'll probably end up, because we think we'll have over 1,500, if not 2,000 applications, we'll look for a team of about 30 reviewers. And each reviewer will score them. So they're going to score on why every business who's listening, the biggest points is, why do you need the money? What will the money do? How it will help you grow? And so they'll go through and we'll score them. And then based on the scores, we literally just rank the scores and take the top ones until we run out of money. And so really the matrix is very simple. We're looking at where the business is in the city. Are they in a disinvested neighborhood? That is on one of our maps. You can go and look. Are you in a low-income census tract? Are you a veteran-owned? Are you a women-owned business? Have you received money in the past? Now, and if you have, it's fine, but you get different points. So if you've received nothing, we've given you more points because you've received nothing, whereas we've got brackets. So if you've received 0 to 50,000, that's the next highest score. And then if you've received over $100,000 from other sources, you get 1 point, because the idea is to go to those businesses that haven't helped. So those are the basic questions. What is the need? Where is your location? Are you in a low-income census tract? Are you in an invested neighborhood? Are you women-owned? Are you a veteran? And what do you plan to do with the funds? There are 10 questions, and I think those are most of them right there.
All right. Thank you so much. I do have one quick question for Ms. Lancaster King. Hi there. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
So WorkSource Atlanta is located in Atlanta's best district, which is 1, which I'm very excited about. But, some of the GED programs that you offer, are those virtual or are they in person at your actual location?
Right now, so we've got multiple things. One is through APS, and so those are a mixture of virtual and hybrid, and the other are through our case manager, which I think are all hybrid right now.
Okay. And the reason I'm asking, I'm just wondering if transportation may be a hindrance for some people signing up for these programs, and if there's a way that we can branch out and provide, more transportation options through, additional funding to probably, help get more people into the programs that you offer.
We can cover transportation costs. That is an allowable expense that we can actually provide, and our contractor, our case management company, does ask people if they need support with transportation in order to attend training, because that is one of those allowable supportive services. So I will say that piece, I think, is covered. The piece that is where we need the most support are things that we're not allowed to spend money on, which is like blanket marketing and blanket awareness. It has to be so specific to an individual program, which kind of defeats some of the purpose if you're trying to do more of a all-call.
Got it. All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you both.
Thank you, Mr. Winston. Up next is Mr. Westmoreland.
I will be brief, but Councilmember Bakhtiari mentioned something that I wanted to also point out, which is two things. One, WorkSource Atlanta is funded entirely at the moment and forever with federal WIOA dollars. The city contributes no money to their operating budget, which is something for us to think about as we move into the next budget cycle. And then Invest Atlanta forever has received a $3 million allocation from us. Last year we did 350,000 toward the economic mobility plan implementation, and then 150,000 toward the WorkSource work. My personal opinion is that it's going to take a lot more than $350,000 for us to fully implement the economic mobility plan, and way more than $150,000 for you to do what you need to do. So while we're up here spending money, this is just something for us to think about in the next couple months.
Thank you, Mr. Westmoreland. I do have a couple questions before we wrap up, Dr. Clementine. The first is, you discussed earlier about the small business hubs that y'all are doing, and it looked like there's a focus on the south side. Can you talk through some of the criteria that you use in terms of your site selection, or if those sites have been selected, what your criteria was, and if they haven't been, what are y'all looking at in terms of where to locate those?
Yes, so most of them have been selected. I will tell you that we have some capacity if we can take on more. Really, we would look for partners that would be amenable to having us there. We were looking for places businesses were already used to going, so other business hubs, so they wouldn't have to go to more than one location. And we really wanted to be on key commercial corridors where we were very accessible, so that a business could get there very quickly. So we have 4 already that we've chosen, but if there's an opportunity to team up with anyone else, we would definitely consider that. And what we've done is we've expanded, so not only will we have the hubs external in different locations of the city, is we've taken advantage of some of our memberships. So I have some of my colleagues that have membership at Switch Yards or at Atlanta Technical Village or ATDC or further out, so just more of a membership that allow for a hub. So really looking at, the goal is to meet businesses where they are when they want us to talk to us. And so trying to do that. So not only we have our main headquarters and physical locations, but then we're going to have some of these office hours, and we're going to make it a one-stop shop. You could come online and look who's where, what time, and we're going to offer different type of programming. So are you interested in a small business loan? You could go and speak there. Or let's say you're interested in a down payment assistance program. We'll have some of our home officers there as well. The other locations that we're looking at are Goodwill on Metropolitan. We're at the Mary Parker Center off Campbellton. We're at Pittsburgh Yards. And I'm missing one. Russell Center. Thank you. Thank you, team. Thank you. Russell Center of Innovation.
Thank you. And I had a couple questions with regards to the KPIs that you discussed earlier. I can't remember which slide it was, but you talked about serving your underemployed population, and specifically, I think it was tied to upskilling and making sure that people can do better and achieve more. I'm curious how you're defining underemployed, and I recognize that, at least from the literature I've seen, it's a very contentious topic. It could be someone just due to your household situation is not making enough money to make ends meet. And others, someone could have a master's degree, but maybe not making enough per what their skill set or their education level is. And I'm just curious kind of what Invest Atlanta's definition is, and if that has created any sort of challenges with regards to the population that you're trying to serve.
Right. First of all, I think you hit it, Councilmember Dozier, is what we're trying to understand is, again, look at the person and where they are. So some individuals are going to choose to work part-time because of their other family obligations. To us, if you've chosen to work part-time, that it wouldn't be underemployed. We're really looking at individuals who have the capacity and want to work more and only have a part-time job. Can we get them to a full-time job? And then within that, are they making at least $18, $19? We really want to get $18 to $20 an hour, so we're hitting that middle wage job, so that they only need to have one job and not two jobs. And so for us, those have been the two things. I'm working also with Goodwill so that we're all coordinating on what the definition is. But for right now, Invest Atlanta is really looking at those, again, who want to work and want to do a full-time job, haven't been able to find it, or the job they currently have is not at that $18 to $20 an hour. Those are what we're saying are underemployed.
Thank you. And my final question, I know you've had a lot of questions today, but this is great discussion. Is Invest Atlanta tracking employment retention? So we get Atlantans into jobs. Are we tracking, are they still employed at that same employer 6 months from now, 12 months from now, 24 months from now, and are we setting any KPIs attached to that metric?
So it depends on the tool that we use. So if we're using an EOF, an Economic Opportunity Fund grant, those require anywhere from 5 to 10 years of reporting. So yes, we will say you committed to 200 jobs. How many jobs are you in your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 until if it goes up to 10 years, then we're tracking. So understanding that they're retaining the number of jobs in the city. What we're also going to do is we talked about the Resurgence program and the ARP for the first time be able to touch so many businesses. We're requiring now, I should have added that, Councilmember Winston, is we're requiring if you receive a grant, you have to commit to reporting. Now, there is no clawback. It's not to penalize. It really is just to track for impact. And so what we're trying to do is understand, were you able to employ, how many people did you employ, and have you kept them employed? And we're going to ask that question for 5 years. We've never been able to have that kind of tracking. So we'll be able to use that with that tool as well. So as much as we can, whenever we can, when we provide a tool and we're asking businesses. Now, we don't ask specific individual. That more would be on the Amy side, on workforce side. We'll look at more the individual. But in terms of overall numbers, yes, we are for specific tools.
Thank you. So, and did you have anything to add, Ms. Lancaster King?
Yeah, I can there are challenges to the data on the individual side as well. So we do pull, part of our performance indicators are quarterly earnings for people that have completed training. Did they get placed? Are they continuing to work? Our data is not so specific as to if they are in the same job, but rather whether or not they're having W-2 wages, 1 quarter, 2 quarter, up to 4 quarters after completing training. So we're using USDOL data, or the UI wage data, so it's somewhat limited, but we are at least able to see if they're maintaining employment, not necessarily at the same employer.
Thank you so much. Before we wrap up, any final questions from my colleagues? All right, yeah, thank you so much. All right, colleagues, next on the agenda, actually we're going to go back to communications. I know we made a shuffle, a little switch up earlier. We're going to go back to communications for an item that we did not discuss. Ms. Linda, if you could read that communication.
Yes, Mr. Chair, that's 22C 5036. This is a communication from Council President Doug Shipman reappointing Mr. John Izzard to serve as a member of the Little Five Points Community Improvement District. This appointment is for a term of 4 years to begin retroactively on February 17th, 2019 and expire February 16th, 2023.
All right, since Mr. Izzard is not here today and the recommendation came to hold, I'll go ahead and make the motion to hold. Can I get a second? Second from Winston. Motion made by Dozier. Any discussion? All right, please open the vote.
The vote is open, Mr. Chair. Everyone, please, the vote is closed.
All right, the vote is accepted. 5 yeas, 0 nays, 0 abstentions. All right, the next item on the agenda, we're moving into ordinances for second reading. Ms. Lindo, please read the first item.
Yes, Mr. Chair, that's 220-1133. This is an ordinance by Community Development and Human Services Committee to amend the charter of the City of Atlanta, Georgia, adopted under and by virtue of the authority of the Municipal Home Rule Act of 1965, Section 36-35, as amended by amending Subpart B, Related Laws, Chapter 9, Taxation, Article 2, Division 3, amended by amending Subpart B, Related Laws, Chapter 9, Taxation, Article 2, Division 3, Exemptions, Subdivision 2, Sections 9 through 61 through 9 through 973 of the Atlanta Code of Ordinances for the purpose of updating these sections with language from the new Atlanta Urban Enterprise Zone Act and for other purposes.
Thank you, Ms. Lindo. And I see Mr. Joshua Humphreys in the back. Mr. Humphreys, if you could speak to this particular ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and hi, everyone. So this is an ordinance to amend the charter. This is the second time it's come before the committees, so it's the second vote for it, to update the Urban Enterprise Zone program. This is a program that provides affordable housing and workforce development related funding. It's existed in the city for 35, 40 years now, and the update, we worked last year to update this at the General Assembly, and so this particular portion of it, the charter amendment, takes the language from the state legislation and amends it in the city's charter, so it aligns with the state legislation. There's also another portion of this. There's a code amendment you'll come to a little bit later in the agenda that then updates elements of the code. But the last time this had been updated was 1998, and so there's a lot of just dated language and practices that are updated related to that. And then the largest element of this is that it gives us a lot more flexibility for affordable housing. Historically, the program could only be used in very low-income areas, and so for affordable housing, it made it such that you could only put affordable housing in low-income areas concentrating poverty. And so we got permission at the state last year, and what this does is allows us to use this tool citywide in a much more flexible way than we have before.
Thank you so much, Mr. Humphreys.
Do something which is going to be crazy, and I probably lost my mind because I'm doing it. I'm going to do is import. We need to bring something in.
Any questions for Mr. Humphreys before we accept the motion?
And you'll see all the different things over here that we choose it from.
All right, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve. Can I get a second? Second from Bakhtiari. Motion made by Dozier.
So you can see here I've selected
any discussion?
232 photos.
All right, please open the vote.
Turn these off because I don't want to import all of these for this short tutorial. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the first one. I'm going to scroll down a little bit. Maybe hold the shift key.
The vote is closed.
All right, the vote is favorable. 5 yeas, 0 nays, and 0 abstentions. The next item.
You'll notice that.
Mr. Chair, if I may take a block of items number 4, 6, 7, 8, and 10. These all.
So the ones after here are
CDP
not. We're
amendments.
just importing a few together.
Any objections from the body?
Options here. We can copy as a DNG.
Go ahead, Ms. Lindo.
Yes, item number 4 is 220-1142. This is CDP 21065. This is an ordinance by Community Development and Human Services Committee to amend the land use element of the 2021 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located at 238 Andrew J. Harrison Place, Northwest, from the single-family residential land use designation to the low-density residential land use designation and for other purposes. This is MPUL in Council District 3. I have number 6. 220-1144. This is CDP 21067. This is an ordinance by Community Development and Human Services Committee to amend the land use element of the 2021 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located at 371 Boulevard Northeast from the low-density commercial land use designation to the mixed-use medium land use designation and for other purposes. This is NPM, Council District 2. Item number 7 is 220-1144. 5, this is CDP 21068. This is an ordinance by Community Development Human Services Committee to amend the land use element of the 2021 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located at 62 Way
Before I continue, there's an
Northeast
option
from the
to
low
do
density 0 to 8 units per acre land use
photo
designation to the high density
and add on. So if you look under there,
land use designation, and for other purposes, this is NPUN in Council District 2.
you go full screen.
Item number 8 is 220-1146. This is CDP 21069. This is an ordinance by Community Development Human Services
It gives that, and it moves
to amend the land use element of the 2021 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located on Waverly Way Northeast from the low-density residential 0 to 8 units per acre land use designation to the high-density residential land use designation. And for purposes, this is NPUN in Council District 2. Item number 10 is 220-1149. This is CDP 22003. This is an ordinance of
Just
the
all I'm doing is I'm
Human
just
Services
hitting these
Committee
keys
to amend the land use element of the 2021 Atlanta Comprehensive
these,
Development Plan
settings.
so as to redesignate
I
property
like them,
located on
we do like
Fairview
them, we
Road
can do that.
Northeast
Drop
and
down
North
a little
Avenue,
bit. This one's
medium
pretty
density
good.
residential 0 to 16 units per
And
acre.
right now, I'm just kind of just
Land use designation
around a little bit.
and the open space land use
And you
designation
might
to the
see
single-family residential land use designation. And
Maybe 3 is something you really don't like.
All right, thank you, Ms. Lindo. Ms. Levendier from the Department of Planning is here. Do you want to speak to any of this legislation?
Yeah, I can get give a brief update or staff reports on all of these.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I'll acknowledge Mr. Bond real quick. Sorry.
The point of order is that I don't think that Ms. Lindo's statements came across to the viewing public because of the imperfection in her microphone. And so I hate to request to ask her to read it again, but I think she probably ought to move to a better mic because I couldn't hear some of the parts of it, and I'm sure it didn't get across to members of the public who are viewing or watching.
is this are you able to hear me clearly at this point, Mr. Council Member?
Not through the microphone. I can hear you, but not through the microphone.
So we've selected 20 of these that we thought were pretty good. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select them all by hitting Control A or Command A.
One moment. Is this not clear?
I can hear you now through the microphone.
I'm going to make a new collection. I'm going to create keepers. And I'm going to include all the selected photos. Click Create.
Okay.
So now what we've
I'll
done is we've
read
created
those
a
items again. Is this better?
So
Yes, it is.
Here we can show
Okay.
photos. And you can see
Item number 4 is 220-1142. This is CDP 065. This is an ordinance by Community Development and Human Services Committee to amend the land use element of the 2021 Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located at 238 Andrew J. Harrison Place, Northwest, from a single-family residential land use designation to a low-density residential land use designation, and for other purposes. Item number 6 is 220-1144. This is CDP 2167. This is an ordinance by Community Development and Human Services Committee to amend the land use element of the 2021 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located at 371 Boulevard Northeast from the low-density commercial land use designation to the medium-density land use designation and for other purposes. This is NPUM in Council District 2. Item number 7 is 220-1145. This is CDP 21068. This is an ordinance by Community Development and Human Services Committee to amend the land use element of the 2021 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located at 62 Waverly Way Northeast from the low-density residential 0 to 6 units per acre land use designation to the high-density residential land use designation and for other purposes. This is NPU and in Council District 2. Item number 8 is CDP 220-1146. This is CDP 21069. This is an ordinance by Community Development and Human Services Committee to amend the land use element of the 2021 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located at 54 Waverly Way Northeast from the low-density residential 0 to 8 units per acre land use designation to the high-density residential land use designation and for other purposes. Item number 10 is 220-1149. This is CDP 22003. This is an ordinance by Community Development and Human Services Committee to amend the land use element of the 2021 2021 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located on Fairview Road Northeast and North Avenue from the medium-density residential 0 to 6 units per acre land use designation and the open space land use designation to the single-family land use designation, and for other purposes. This is MPU N in Council District 2.
Thank you so much, Ms. Lindo. All right, Ms. Lavendier, second verse and Ms. First.
Yeah, great, thank you. Okay, the first one on CDP 21065 on Andrew Hairston Place. This is in the Vine City neighborhood. In 2017, the neighborhood worked with the West Side Land Use, with the West Side Future Fund to develop the West Side Land Use Framework Plan. And then 2 years ago, right before the pandemic, the neighborhood worked extensively to implement the plan by amending the SPI district and amend the land use of the neighborhood. So there were numerous parcels that were changed. The parcels on this street were single-family residential, and the plan retained that single-family residential land use and zoning for the entire street. So staff recommends denial of this land use amendment to retain single-family on that street. The next one on Boulevard, this is in the Old Fourth Ward master plan. The plan recommends mixed use 5 to 9 stories for Boulevard, and this land use amendment is consistent with that plan recommendation. And the plan specifically recommends the MRC2 zoning, which is the zoning that's being done in conjunction with this development, and 85-foot high. So it promotes walkability and density along transit and corridors. The next two on Waverly Way are the Inman Park neighborhood. They are interior to the neighborhood. The neighborhood is predominantly low-density residential with a few medium density in that reflect existing multifamily within the neighborhood. The proposed high-density residential is inconsistent with the Inman Park Historic District policies. That type of development is more appropriate along corridors and not along a local street in the center of a neighborhood. So staff recommends denial of those two land use amendments. The last one on Fairview and North Avenue, this is correcting what we believe was a mistake to have a single family along Fairview Road, which is in the Druid Hills Historic District, and has single-family zoning along North Avenue. All those parcels have a single-family neighborhood, so we are seeking to have a consistency between the land use and the zoning by having a single-family residential. So staff recommends approval of that land use amendment. So that's a summary of all those land use cases. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lavendier. I do have a couple questions. For the ones that there's a recommendation from staff for disapproval.
Yes.
Can you speak to what the recommendation was from the neighborhood MPUs as well as the council members for those districts?
So on the CDP 2165 in PUL in Vine City, the MPU recommended approval for that. For the ones on Waverly Way, that is an MPUN, and they also recommended approval for those. So those were the three that staff recommends denial, but the MPU recommended approval.
But obviously, we wanted that. That's kind of an interesting one. Let's go back.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions from
library.
The committee.
So now that we've done that, now that we're inside.
All right, I'll entertain a motion actually, Councilmember Bond, go ahead.
We've done that. We can hit Command A with selecting all.
I'd like to call for a division on the vote.
From here and put it on all the photos. I'm going to choose.
Say that again. I can't hear you.
All right, I'd like division on the vote to vote on each item individually.
Okay. So we've got the 5-star. So we're applying.
I'll accept that.
Or either pull the one from MPUL off separately. Because I want to vote. I want to follow the staff recommendation on that.
Settings we can apply there and just hit synchronize. And now notice that this setting now is going to go through to every.
I think it's the first one.
That was the first one. That was CDP 21-065 or Ordinance 22-0-1142, item number 4.
And at this point here, we're like, you know what? I really like this. What do you want to do with it? Would you like to export it? Would you like to share?
I'll go ahead and
open it in Photoshop.
entertain a motion with regards to the first item. Apologies for my parliamentary procedures
Or if I'm finished with
out of order.
Let's just double click on that one there.
Okay, we'll go ahead and I'll go ahead and entertain a motion for item 22-0-1142.
Grab the crop tool, and I'm just going to.
We have a motion for approval. Do I have a second? A motion by Councilmember Westmoreland, a second by Councilmember Bakhtiari. Any discussion? No discussion. All right, please open the vote.
The vote is open, Mr. Chair. The vote is closed.
All right, the vote is favorable. 4 yeas, 1 nay, and 0 abstentions. Okay, I will move forward with taking the rest of items 6, 7, 8, and 10 as a block. I'll entertain a motion. I see you have actually we have a, Mr. Bond. Was that a motion from Mr. Winston? Where's the motion? Okay, motion from Westmoreland, second from Winston. Any discussion? I will just want to and one of the questions I had about the Waverly Way particular ordinance related to that. I talked with the council member on that particular item. I know that he is in support of approval. I also know that the MPU was also in support of approval, as was stated before, so I just wanted my colleagues to be aware of that. Any other discussion? All right, please open the vote.
The vote is open, Mr. Chair. The vote is closed.
All right, the vote is favorable, 4 yeas, 0 nays, and 1 abstention. All right, next item.
Mr. Chair, if I may take items number 5, 9, 13, and 14 as a block.
Any objections? Seeing none, please proceed, Ms. Lindo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item number 5 is 22-0-1143. That's CDP 21066. This is an ordinance by Community Development Human Services Committee to amend the land use element of the 2021 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located at 131 Leslie Street Southeast from the single-family residential land use designation to the medium-use, low-density land use designation. And for other purposes, this is NPUO and Council District 5. Item number 9 is 22-0-1148. This is CDP 22002. This is an ordinance by Community Development Human Services Committee to amend the land use element of the 2021 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located at 2051, 2085, 2095 Marietta Boulevard Northwest from the industrial land use designation to the medium-use, medium land use designation, and for other purposes, this is NPUD in Council District 9. Item number 13 is 22-0-1191. This is ordinance by Councilmember Lillian Bakhtiari to amend the land use element of the 2021 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located at 1134, 1146, 1147, 1152, 1162, 1165, 1166, 1172, 1177, 1178, and 1185 Oakville Drive Southeast. And property located at 838, 842, 848, 854, 858, 864, and 868 Shadow Ridge Drive, Southeast. to the single-family residential land use designation and for other purposes. Item number 14, this 22-0-1200. This is an ordinance by Councilmember Lilian Bakhtiari to amend the land use element of the 2021 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located at 1363 Black Oak Drive Southeast to the single-family residential land use designation and for other purposes.
Thank you, Ms. Lindo. Per recommendation, I would like to go ahead and make a motion to hold. Can I get a second? Seconded by Bakhtiari. Motion made by Dozier. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, please open the vote.
The vote is open, Mr. Chair. The vote is closed.
All right, the vote is favorable, 5 yeas, 0 nays, 0 abstentions. Next item.
Next item, Mr. Chair, we're to resolutions. Item number 11, Mr. Chair. I apologize. Item number 11 is 22-0-1189. This is an ordinance by Community Development and Human Services Committee authorizing the mayor on behalf of the Department of Parks and Recreation to accept a reimbursement grant award from Bright from the Start, Georgia Department of Early Care and Learning for the 2022 Summer Food Program in an amount not to exceed $790,680 in accordance with Section 9-210 of the Atlanta Code and authorizing an amendment to the fiscal year 2020-22 intergovernmental grant fund budget to anticipate and appropriate and authorize the mayor or designate on behalf of the city of Atlanta to enter into any necessary agreements in conjunction with the summer food service program and for other purposes.
Thank you. And I believe Commissioner Dargo is here with the Department of Parks and Recreation. Good to see you, sir. Could you speak to this particular ordinance?
Good afternoon, Chairman Dozier and City Council members. I'm Commissioner John Dargle with the Department of Parks and Recreation. This ordinance authorizes the city to charge and pay expenses through a reimbursement grant of up to $790,680 associated with the 2022 Summer Food Service Program through the state of Georgia's Bright from the Start program. The meals program is offered at campus friend sites and other locations across the city. The summer food service program was designed to provide children in low-income neighborhoods with nutritious meals during the summer months when children no longer receive breakfasts and lunches. We appreciate your continued support of the program, and I'm happy to address any questions that you may have.
Any questions from my colleagues? Mr. Bond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And it's always good to see you, Commissioner Darling.
Thank you.
You do an exceptional job on behalf of the citizens of this city.
Thank you.
Given the recent inflation that we have here in the city, has there been any discussions about perhaps expanding the program to a wider array of families in the city?
Well, right now we're located in 60 different locations, as well as the Centers of Hope right now. I'd be happy to look into that and discuss that with staff and the administration to look at expanding or broadening that program.
Do you feel like you're getting adequate coverage for all the different neighborhoods already, or?
Yes, so we serve about 3,000 breakfasts and lunches as well, so it's about 3,000 youth that are participating in the program.
Okay. Well, I know that Atlanta, I think, is the second highest city for the inflation rate, and food is a part of that. So I guess not a fully official request, but if the children are there, so they receive these lunches during the summertime, correct?
Yes, sir.
But you already have a ongoing afternoon snack program at the rec centers where there is programming.
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for the information.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Bond. Any other questions from the committee? All right, we got a motion to approve. I'll second that. Any discussion? Seeing none, please open the vote.
The vote is open, Mr. Chair. Will everyone please vote?
I think the mover was Councilmember Westmoreland. What's the mover?
The vote is closed.
All right, the vote is favorable, 5 yeas, 0 nays, and 0 abstentions. Next item.
Next item, Mr. Chair, is item 12, which is 22-1190. This is an ordinance by Community Development and Human Services Committee to correct Ordinance 21-0609, which was adopted by the City Council on August 16, 2021, and approved as per City Charter, Section 2-403 on August 25, 2021, without signature by operation of law to correct the names of neighborhoods and accompanying official neighborhood and neighborhood planning unit maps and for other purposes.
Thank you so much, Ms. Lindo. And I see we have Ms. Leah LaRue with the Department of Planning here. Ms. LaRue, do you have to share or to clarify with regards to this ordinance?
Good afternoon, everyone. Leah LaRue, Assistant Director, Neighborhood Planning for the for the Department of City Planning. The legislation is correcting previously adopted legislation from August of 2021, wherein 4 neighborhoods in MPU sought to be officially recognized by the City of Atlanta as neighborhoods. In the process, we discovered that one of those neighborhoods was a duplicative name from another neighborhood, and in one of the neighborhoods, it created a situation where there were 2 non-contiguous neighborhoods. We amended the boundaries and changed the name, and that's the legislation you have before you.
Thank you. Any questions from my colleagues? There's a motion to approve by Councilmember Westmoreland. I'll second. Any discussion? Seeing none, please open the vote.
The vote is open, Mr. Chair. The vote is closed.
All right, the vote passes favorable. 5 yeas, 0 nays, and 0 abstentions. Next item.
Next item, Mr. Chair, we're up to resolutions. This item number 15, which is 22R3252. This is a resolution by Councilmember Byron Amos recognizing the Rodney Cook Senior Park Advisory Council and commending them for the work they have done to engage the community and develop and implement policies and procedures that will ensure the Rodney Cook Senior Park will continue to be an inviting and vibrant destination in the Vine City and English Avenue community for many generations to come and for other purposes.
Move approval.
Second.
1 second. So the author had asked for this legislation to be held, and so
I withdraw.
I'll make the motion to hold, and I'll accept the second from Councilmember Westmoreland. Second. Please open the vote.
The vote is open, Mr. Chair. The vote is closed.
All right, the motion passes. 5 yeas, 0 nays, and 0 abstentions. Next item.
Next item, Mr. Chair, is item number 16. This is 22R3253. This is a resolution by Council members Jason Dozier, Lillian Bakhtiari, and Keisha Sean Waits, amending the City of Atlanta 2018 Annual Action Plan under its 2015-2019 Consolidated Plan for the purpose of reprogramming activities from the 2019 Housing Opportunities for Persons with AIDS funding to the 2018 HOPWA funding and drawing down the balance of the city's 2018 HOPWA funding from the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development and for other purposes. And Mr. Chair, we do have a substitute which includes the amount for the drawdown and some other language revisions.
Thank you. I will make the motion to substitute. I made the motion, second from Bakhtiari. Any discussion on that? All right, please open the vote.
The vote is open, Mr. Chair. The vote is closed.
All right, passes 5 yeas, 0 nays, 0 abstentions. All right, we have here Commissioner Deborah Lannen to speak to this legislation. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Good afternoon, council members. This particular resolution is requesting permission for the Department of Grants and Community Development to transfer and reprogram activities that were already funded and already expended from the FY19 HOPWA funds to FY18 HOPWA funds for the sole purpose of drawing down the balance of the city's HOPWA funds from the HUD funding that we've previously received.
Thank you. Any questions for Commissioner Lannen? Councilman Westmoreland.
Not a question, but I think this is the first time I've ever seen you in person, so it's good to meet you.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Any other questions from the body? Seeing none, I'll move approval. Can I get a second?
Mr. Chair, we need to hold this for the 30-day comment period.
Oh, that is correct. I rescind my motion. I will make a motion to hold for the 30-day comment period. Can I get a second? Second from Bakhtiari. Please open the vote.
The vote is open.
All right, the vote is favorable, 5 yeas, 0 nays, and 0 abstentions.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, on to the next item on the agenda is our papers held in committee.
Yes, Mr. Chair, the first item to remove from held is item number 21. That's 220-1046. This is CDP 21056. This is an ordinance by Community Development and Human Services Committee to amend the land use element of the 2021 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located at 534 Springside Drive Southeast from the single-family residential land use designation to the low-density land use designation and for other purposes. This is NPUZ in Council District 12.
Thank you. I believe Ms. Lavinier, you're here to speak to this particular ordinance.
Yes, thank you. So the applicant requested a different zoning district, so this is no longer needed, this land use amendment. So the recommendation is to file this paper.
I will make the motion to file. Can I get a second?
All right, thank you.
Seconded by Bakhtiari. Any discussion? All right, please open the vote.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? Mr. Pond. The vote is closed, Mr. Chair.
All right, the vote is favorable, 4 yeas, 0 nays, and 0 abstentions. Next item.
Next item, Mr. Chair, is item number 27 on held. This is 220-1114. This is an ordinance by council members Michael Julian Bond, Mary Norwood, Andrew L. Boone, and Antonia Lewis, as amended by the Community Development and Human Services Committee to revise the purpose and function of the Rodney Cook Senior Park Historic Oversight Committee, established pursuant to 1334 in order to ensure that the committee shall be authorized to engage the community and provide recommendations on implementing policies and procedures for the future maintenance and improvements of the park, to repeal 20R4009, which established a Rodney Cook Senior Park Advisory Council, to reduce confusion and eliminate unnecessary duplication of efforts, to recognize Rodney Cook Senior Park Conservancy, Inc. as a 501(c) nonprofit corporation dedicated to the preservation and restoration of Rodney Cook Senior Park and for other purposes.
Thank you, Ms. Lindo. Colleagues, every one of you should have gotten a copy of the substitution. I'm going to go ahead and make the motion to substitute. Can I get a second? Second from Winston. Motion made by Dozier. Any discussion? Seeing none, please open the vote.
The vote is open.
The vote is 4 yeas, 0 nays, and 0 abstentions. It is approved.
Mr. Chair, I realize there are some changes to to the caption. May I read the substitute caption now that council has brought that forward?
Yes, you may.
This is an ordinance to rename and revise the purpose and functions of the Rodney Cook Senior Park Historic Oversight Committee established pursuant to 20-1334, such that it shall be known as the Rodney Cook Senior Park Historic Advisory Committee, and in order to ensure that the committee shall be authorized to engage the community and provide recommendations on implementing policies and procedures for the future maintenance and improvement of the park, and to repeal 20R 4009, which established a Rodney Cook Senior Park Advisory Council to reduce confusion and eliminate unnecessary duplication of efforts to recognize Rodney Cook Senior Park Conservancy as a 501(c) not-for-profit corporation dedicated to the preservation and restoration of Rodney Cook Senior Park and for related.
All right, thank you, Ms. Lindo. I will accept the motion to approve as substituted. A motion from Councilmember Bond, seconded by Winston. Any discussion? Seeing none, please open the vote.
The vote is open, Mr. Chair. The vote is closed.
All right, the motion is favorable, 5 yeas, 0 nays, and 0 abstentions. Next item.
Next item, Mr. Chair, is item number 28. That's 20-1134. This is an ordinance by Community Development and Human Services Committee to amend the City of Atlanta Municipal Code Section 146-51 to provide for a strategic urban enterprise zone program to designate areas in Exhibit A as urban enterprise zones and for other purposes. And Mr. Chair, we do have an amendment to attach updated exhibits to this legislation.
I'll make the motion to amend to update Exhibit A. Second by Bakhtiari. Any discussion? Seeing none, please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
The motion to amend is adopted. 5 yeas, 0 nays, and 0 abstentions. I will go ahead and make a motion to approve as amended. Can I get a second? Second. Second by Bond. Any discussion? Seeing none, please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
The vote is favorable, 5 yeas, 0 nays, and 0 abstentions. Next item.
Next item, Mr. Chair, is 20-1175. This is an ordinance by Councilmember Andrew L. Boone authorizing the mayor on behalf of the Atlanta Workforce Development Agency, also known as WorkSource Atlanta, to amend Cooperative Agreement FC 119-0582. It's a cooperative agreement for service delivery, providing adult dislocated worker and youth services with Arbor ENT LLC, doing business as EQUIS Workforce Solutions, to reduce Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act grant funding allocations from fiscal year 21 dislocated worker and increase the adult program. All services to be charged to and paid from accounts listed herein and for other purposes. And Mr. Chair, we do have a substitute that's been distributed for this legislation. The substitute, it added language to include references to previously approved ordinances and resolutions and explain also the reason for the shift in funds.
All right, thank you. I'll go ahead and make the motion to substitute. Can I get a second? Second by Winston. Any discussion? Seeing none, please open the vote.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed.
All right, the substitute is approved, 5 yeas, 0 nays, and 0 abstentions. Do we need to read the full caption for the substitute?
There were no changes to the caption, Mr. Chair.
All right, I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve as substituted. Can I get a second? Second by Bakhtiari. Any discussion? Seeing none, please open the vote.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed.
All right, it has been favorable on substitute, 5 yeas, 0 nays, and 0 abstentions. Next item.
Next item, Mr. Chair, is 22-1176. This is an ordinance by Councilmember Jason Dozier authorizing the Department of Procurement to issue a purchase order and for grants and accounting to update accounting information associated with Cooperative Agreement Number FC 1190582 for workforce service delivery, providing adult dislocated worker and youth services between Atlanta Workforce Development Agency, also known as Workforce Atlanta, and Arbor ENT LLC, doing business as Equus Workforce Solutions, to Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act Grant Awards fiscal year 21 and fiscal year 21 dislocated worker and project year 20 youth to pay outstanding obligations of $597,551.54, all services to be charged to and paid from accounts listed herein and for other purposes.
Thank you, Ms. Lindo. Upon recommendation, I'm actually going to make a motion to hold. Can I get a second? Second from Bakhtiari. Any discussion? Hearing none, please open the vote.
Oh, Mr. Chair, I apologize. This item is already held, so we'll just leave it on held.
All right, that works for me. Next item.
That concludes our legislative items, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I believe there is no walk-in legislation, which is the next item on the agenda, and there are no requested items. Before we adjourn, I do want to give our committee opportunity to make announcements, but I will go ahead with the first couple of announcements. The first being over the weekend, we were saddened by the news of the passing of former Mayor Sam Massell. One of the things that we wanted to share with the community is that due to his services, which are being held tomorrow, the two committees that are scheduled for tomorrow have their times adjusted. Specifically, Transportation Committee, which is normally scheduled for 9:30, will be held at 9 o'clock a.m. And Finance Executive, which starts in the afternoon, will be instead being held at 11 o'clock a.m. And as we've been doing, because of COVID protocols, all meetings will be held here in the City Council chambers. And the other announcement that I had, and I misspoke during our full council meeting last week, we've made some adjustments to the schedule, but the Community Development and Human Services Committee, along with the Finance and Executive Committee, will be jointly hosting a work session on Hopworth programming and funding policies, and having a robust conversation around reimbursements tied to those programs. That will be held on Tuesday, March 22nd. At 9 o'clock a.m. right here in the Atlanta City Council chambers. So those are my two announcements. Any other announcements from my colleagues? Mr. Bond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for acknowledging the passing of former Atlanta Mayor Sam Massell. He was a great mentor and a friend to me, and deeply saddened by his passing. And just want to encourage the administration to hasten placing his name above the old council chamber action we took, a term ago that the Bottoms administration could not accomplish. So we hope that the Dickens administration, we have all the faith that they will do so toot sweet. But on tomorrow, at the exact time of his funeral at 3 p.m., the Hello Fresh Grab and Go will take place. We'll be over at 2175 Metropolitan Parkway at Victory Outreach Atlanta. Begins at 3 p.m. There's no prerequisite to receive this benefit, and if you don't need it, chances are you know somebody who does. Please pass the word along. The Post One at Large staff, the staff from the Solicitor's Office, Atlanta Fire and Rescue, plus Second Helpings Atlanta, and our volunteers will be there in attendance to make sure it goes off. In our partnerships, we serve about 8,000 of these meals a week. And so this is the in-person pickup and walk-up. So if you can, however means necessary, you can get there, please come and please take advantage. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bond. Any other announcements before we adjourn? Mr. Winston.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I just want to announce that my office will be jointly holding a Thomasville Heights Neighborhood Community Steering Committee meeting next week at 6:30 at the Thomasville Heights Recreation Center. This steering committee will lead the community's efforts into the Thomasville Heights stabilization and planning efforts. And the efforts are a joint activity with the Community Foundation, the City of Atlanta, Atlanta Housing, Atlanta Public Schools, and more. And that's next Tuesday at 6:30 at the Thomasville Heights Recreation Center. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Winston. Any other announcements? Hearing none, I move that we adjourn.
Great meeting.